Good evening, San Diego. I'm Chief Meteorologist Carlene Chavis, and thank you for tuning in for your CBS 8 Plus weather update. Let's first get to the winds that picked up earlier today. And so we had the strongest ones across the desert. That's with those gusts upwards of about 55 miles per hour. And we saw that earlier this evening during the newscast. So we had the legend that was indicating those gusts that were really strong across the desert, but it's been more of a breeze west of the mountains. So we've had most of those gusts this afternoon and evening around the teens as well as the 20s. But the strongest ones will continue to impact the desert, especially along the desert mountain slopes. Gusts upwards of about 55 miles per hour with those sustained wind speeds out of the west about 25 to 35 miles per hour. So that will continue all the way through tomorrow morning. We have this wind advisory all the way until 10 a.m. So first came the wind, and now we're going to talk about the rain. So we did have a little bit of drizzle earlier in our forecast, and that was earlier this morning because we had a deepening of the marine layer. But now we're gearing up for much heavier rainfall in the forecast, especially on Thursday into Friday. So that's where we have that high threat when it does come to flood concerns and a flood watch that has been issued by the National Weather Service. So rain chances start to ramp up by tomorrow. So you're talking about light to moderate for tomorrow, the heavier rainfall for Thursday, still seeing that into the early morning hours for Friday, and then everything starts to dry out over the weekend. So that heavy rainfall moving through on Thursday also offers up a chance for some downpours in the forecast. There is a chance, a slight one, but still being present, that we could see some thunderstorms developing as a result. Remember, we cannot stress this enough because you see the rescues that happen whenever we do get heavy rainfall, and we haven't had rain in quite some time, all the way back to March of last year. Last time, the end of the month, is we got any rain that was like this. You are not encouraged to drive through flooded roadways. So turn around, don't drown. That is the key message, especially when you're talking about flood concerns. You never know just how deep that water is, and especially with heavy rainfall coming in the nighttime hours, we want to keep you nice and safe out there on the roadways. Flood watch extends all the way from the coast to the mountains. So anywhere that you see highlighted in green on this map, that's where we could be dealing with some flash flooding as well as flood advisories being issued by the National Weather Service. This is just a courtesy and a heads up of what is ahead. So we have that flood watch, and that's going to start in the afternoon hours on Thursday and take us all the way into Friday morning around 4 in the morning. Those chances are high. That's why we're looking at weather impact alert days for Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. And then look at that dip going back into a dry period. That will be over the weekend after we get some much needed rainfall. Let's go ahead and set the clock in motion. Cloud cover is going to be intense as we go from tonight all the way through tomorrow. Then you start to get that light to moderate activity. So this is around 8:45 in the morning on Wednesday. Also, that snow level is coming down. So roughly about 6,000 feet. We are talking about the potential of seeing about a tenth to maybe even an inch of snowfall in our local mountains, but more of the stress is going to be on the rain. So seeing that for Mount Laguna being possible, some flurry action, and then we get right to that rainfall. So by the afternoon hours, around 3:20 on Wednesday, you're seeing a lot of cloud cover still going strong across the county. We take a little bit of a break when it does come to that more scattered and widespread activity, that first round that moves in for Wednesday, but we're still seeing some of that activity hugging the coastline. So you're seeing that stretching all the way from North County coastline down towards downtown, seeing some of that moisture, the batch of it, the bulk of it's going to be still offshore. And then we have that next influx that moves in as we go into the evening hours. Around 7:30, you're seeing that for East County, and that's going to be on Wednesday. Then it becomes a little bit more on the spotty side until we get to the heavy stuff that rolls in by Thursday. So early in the morning, we start to see this around 6 a.m. So you're seeing heavier stuff, heavier activity moving in for North County. That's going to continue to trickle all the way down across the county towards the South Bay, and then also seeing some lighter activity across the mountains, at least not including Palomar Mountain, but Julian as well as Mount Laguna. Then the heavy stuff starts to roll in a little bit more. So around 11:40 in the morning, it's more widespread on Thursday, and then we get to Thursday night. So evening hours into the overnight hours is when we're talking about the heavier rainfall, and also starting to see the more moderate pockets and heavy pockets picking up for North County around 5:35. That will be the evening hours on Thursday, and then we get to Thursday night. You are looking at heavy rainfall for a good chunk of the county. That's why we're talking about the flood watch. This is that time frame when we're expecting the bulk of the moisture that takes us all the way from Thursday night through early Friday morning. So we are looking at some of those pockets, those little red indications. We are also looking at the potential for downpours when it comes to that, and even some thunderstorms. So that chance will be there in the forecast. More widespread activity about 11:20 on Thursday night, and then we continue to hold on to that at least for a couple hours afterwards. And then we get into the early morning hours for Friday around 7:45. Slick roads out there, potentially ponding on the roads. If you do have the CBS 8 app, you would get the alert. So if you're thinking about your morning drive, well, something to consider, because if we have a flood advisory, flash flood warning, anything like that, you would get that alert right there on your phone first thing in the morning. You wake up, you look at the phone, and you see where you got to be careful. So we're still looking at chance for wet weather in the forecast around 7:45 on Friday in the morning hours, but it doesn't look to be very heavy. It becomes a little bit more spotty, still seeing it for the desert as well, so desert not being left out of this atmospheric river event, and then still seeing some accumulations developing around 9:45 in the morning on Friday. So it's not until we get to the weekend that we can kind of put those umbrellas away and then kind of reevaluate everything that happened. So we are looking at the rain. It's going to be picking up in the forecast, and these are some totals, as I mentioned, that we haven't seen in a long time. So the last time that we had an inch or even more than that was back in March. So that was March of last year. It's been quite some time, and these totals, they've been pretty consistent over the past couple of days, and that's also why the National Weather Service has issued that flood watch. So we are seeing most of the county receiving an inch or more of rain. Even an inch potential. These are always subject to change, but as I mentioned, they've been pretty consistent over the past few days. And so that's about for Borrego Springs. You're seeing more than 3 inches, and that would be for Palomar Mountain. We could see about a little bit more than 1.5 inches for Escondido, the same for Oceanside, and hitting that mark at 1.5 inches for Carlsbad, even for Fallbrook, where we saw a lot of those heavier bands moving in, of course, from North County first and then stretching a little bit more towards the south. And so that's why you're looking at a little bit more than 2.5 inches for Fallbrook, and also seeing more than 1 inch for Chula Vista, as well as for downtown. So that's when all is said and done over the course of Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. I mentioned this at our newscast earlier this evening, and I'll say it again. I also mentioned it yesterday. If your house was prone to flooding, or even your business, last year when we did have atmospheric river events that moved through because we had such an active rainy season, keep in mind that maybe it's a good idea to go ahead and get those sandbags, because we want to protect your business, you want to protect your home. On our website, I do have it right there on our weather blog, cbs8.com/weather. If you scroll through that, you will see it's kind of high towards the top where you can actually pick up sandbags. Just remember to bring your shovel. So we have those details right there on our homepage as well as for our weather blog. And if you're looking at more details in the forecast when it comes to temperatures, we have widespread 40s expected for your overnight lows, also holding on to 50s for overnight lows. That would be for downtown as well as for Del Mar, and you have those 30s across the mountains. Daytime highs, we're talking below seasonal. So this time of the year, we're normally around those mid-60s. We are not going to be at that point for tomorrow. So you have widespread 50s in the forecast, even in a daytime high tomorrow. That would be at 49 degrees, and that will be for Alpine. The next 7 days for the coast, you have the 70s, and also talking about, you have the 60s, mainly for our temperatures, but you're going to start off with tomorrow, and that's at 57 degrees. Then you go through the next 7 days, you're going to stay in those 60s until you get to the weekend. A little bit warmer in the mid to upper 60s by Sunday, and then keep that range going into the start of next week. For the inland valleys, you have the 50s for daytime highs for tomorrow, then you're back into those 60s, and there's where 70s are. You got the low 70s returning by Sunday, also looking at low 70s back in the forecast by Tuesday of next week as we dry out. You have the next 7 days for the mountains where those 70s will be more pronounced, when those 40s will be more pronounced, and then you're looking at the 50s and 60s over the weekend for your daytime highs. And talking about the desert, you're going to be in the 60s over the next 3 days in response to the storm system moving through. As mentioned, even a chance for wet weather in the desert, up to about 1 inch of rainfall when everything is said and done. That's what forecast models are projecting. And then looking at those 70s returning for daytime highs over the weekend, and even potentially seeing some upper 70s to low 80s by Monday of next week. Please be careful out there. Have your umbrellas nice and handy. Remember, don't drown, turn around if you do encounter a flooded roadway. And of course, we'll continue to keep you posted right here on your extended weather forecast on CBS 8+. Have a good night.